Thank you so much for that. I like the way you brought this in. I'm going to start with the fundamental problem that we have with our governance in Lagos and in Nigeria as a whole, which is the consciousness of governance, where the people that are at the helm of affairs almost believe that they are doing you a favor by providing leadership or services, as opposed to prioritizing the welfare of the citizen and ensuring that that welfare experiences minimum inconvenience. Now, these are two different approaches. If as a government I feel that I'm going to repair this bridge, and this is what matters in repairing the bridge, and to hell with what experience the citizenry is going to have to face, and you see it a lot happen in Lagos, as opposed to understanding and prioritizing the citizenry. It completely determines everything about your planning and your execution. It determines the contractor that you give that job to. It determines the timing with which you're going to do it. When are you going to do it? What's the best time to do it to minimize inconvenience that Lagosians will face? It determines the way you do it, the timing for it. I urge every Nigerian to please Google the San Yuan Bridge in Beijing that was done in 43 hours. This was a 1,300-ton project where they dismantled a bridge and put another one in 43 hours. And you see the planning behind it. And it's not about, and this was done in 2015. I'm not talking about new technology that happened last year or this year, 2015. So it's about the thinking, the consciousness that says we need this type of contractor that can do this job in this amount of time, in this way that minimizes inconvenience. So in terms of scenario planning, this government failed woefully. Now, coming out to address the fact afterwards and saying you're sorry, you take responsibility, that's fine. But it's like, look at all the suffering that people have dealt with. Oh, you're sorry, that's great, you're sorry, cool. But you could have avoided this, you could have planned for it better, you could have ensured that this did not have to happen the way it did. So that's the first part, right? To your question. I feel that there's a deeper conversation that needs to be had. One on the need to improve the urban planning of Lagos, the need to improve the connectivity of Lagos, and the need to provide more housing stock to minimize the amount of movement that people need to move, right? And when people look at this kind of situation where you have this one-way movement that's constantly happening in Lagos, you see that it affects the entire state because you have people coming from Oshodi, you have people coming from Alimosho, all going to different parts on this one axis, as opposed to creating a decentralized Lagos where everything should be around you. There are businesses that are thriving in your immediate environment. You are also connecting the state better. You are ensuring that we are using water transportation and normalizing it. This is a failure in relation to all the talk about the multimodal transport system. And even when you think about the communication of it, the government should have known that this would have affected the state the way it did. And we should have been talking about this a month, 2 months before. There should have been better communication. Your correspondent said that they issued out notices when?
On Monday.
And then you are blaming people that, oh, we issued notice, you should have known better. No. This is a state that houses almost 22 million human beings. The government is collecting data. I know that they do collect data on traffic movement. They should have been better informed, and the scenario planning for this should have been much better if they prioritize the well-being of the citizenry. But if that is not a factor, their focus is we are repairing the bridge, it's an emergency, and we are doing it, so be grateful and be happy.
Yeah, well, I'm afraid that it has not really solved everything. I mean, most of the problems of the Labour Party. I guess that most of the political actors will have to go back to the drawing board, and then perhaps the series of intrigues, would also, and subterfuge, characteristics of the political class would also begin anew. The problem with the Supreme Court judgment is that it is so final. And obviously, you were asking in your opener there whether there is still a space for Abure, at least maybe politically. He has to go back to the drawing board and then begin anew the process of reinventing himself. So the House of the Labour Party continues to be a place of a great confusion. I think it is, and it would appear that the crisis, I mean, this crisis started essentially immediately after the 2023 elections, and it has been unabated. People have often blamed the rival political party, the ruling party, of being, the orchestrator-in-chief of the crisis in the Labour Party. But I think that is a normal thing. The politicians would always look for advantages. So even if it is true, then you must give them kudos for their ability to create crisis within the Labour Party, and then of course hold the Labour Party responsible for not having a cohesive political platform, a platform that virtually fell apart immediately after the last election. And that tells you something about the nature and the character of the party when it was, it came to being. It wasn't something that was, the formation of the Labour Party wasn't exactly something that started there from, grassroots, or something that, a vehicle that was put for a particular purpose, and then after the election, the party fell apart. So it's unfortunate, it is sad. This is coming at a time when this country is in dire need of a serious opposition, especially with what's happening within the polity. It is good for democracy, for the growth of democracy, for nations to have viable political alternatives, viable opposition parties, to be able to give the ruling or the dominant party a run for its money. In the absence of that, then there's going to be even bigger crisis in the country, because the dominant party will continue to do a lot of things unchecked, but we are waiting, and they're also watching.
Very well said, Charles. Interestingly, I would say this is an end of a season, in a long-standing series of drama in the Nigerian political history, specifically this one I target Labour parties at. But the Supreme Court has been able to close this chapter of Abure issue. Like it or not, for Abure, whether he likes it or not, he is no longer the chairman of Labour Party, and an opportunity has been presented to Labour Party to find a way to get themselves together, if at all they could, because they are infested with multidimensional issues as a political party, Charles.
Well, has an opportunity been offered? I mean, you heard the deputy national chairman there interpreting the Supreme Court ruling in a completely different way.
Yeah, why I say it's an opportunity is whatever we may say at this point, it is at the apex court, Charles. At this point, the best they can do is to go back to the Supreme Court to interpret what the Supreme Court says. It can't go beyond that. This is the last cycle Abure and his team has. And let us not forget, not long ago, the Supreme Court gave the same declaration with regard to the PDP issue, i.e., the internal party structure issue is purely an internal issue. And therefore, I don't see the Supreme Court giving Abure any leeway to that. But they have a bigger problem than Abure, like you rightly said. The internal party democracy has been an issue. Because in my view, Charles, even though there are the good politicians, in Nigeria, the political space is infested by what I call political gallivanters, political mercenaries, and political jobbers. And to that extent, this will continue happening until those people that should be the vanguards, i.e. the political quote-unquote leaders in those parties, whether it is Excellency Peter Obi or Alhaji Atiku Abubakar and their likes, to be firm in, first of all, leading by example to entrench internal democracy. That may be the first step to having a proper political party that can even stand on its own, talk less of being an opposition. So yes, an opportunity has been presented to them as far as the Abure issue is concerned, but there are other chapters of issues for the political party to deal with. Some are fundamental, and then some are post-2023 elections, and then the days ahead will be very interesting because of what I said earlier.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but the best I can do for you is to break it down as much as possible.
Well, thank you very much indeed.
The Supreme Court has already ruled. As you said, this is not the first time that the apex court is ruling on such matters when it comes to internal affairs of political parties. You see, in politics, there's a lot of drama. There's in all this, shambles or whatever gamble you call it for 2027. This is what is happening. People are trying to position themselves, and we don't have actual or real opposition in Nigeria anyway. We are not, having a politics of ideology or that kind of politics where people are in politics because of what they believe in. Most politicians in Nigeria are deceitful.
They're in it for what they believe in, which is money.
Well, which is money, yeah.
And personal
exactly,
power.
And personal
They
power.
certainly believe in that.
Yeah, they believe in that, but it's not an ideology where
No, it isn't.
Exactly, where people expect them. But anyway, the Supreme Court has spoken, and we expect the politicians to accept and respect decisions of not only the Supreme Court, but any other court in Nigeria. And that is very, very important, because internal affairs of a political party has already been settled matter.